For 42 years, Elias Ward photographed the town of Blackridge. Weddings, birthdays, school portraits, church gatherings, funerals. If someone in Blackridge had lived a life, Elias had probably captured at least one piece of it. He was quiet, careful, and old-fashioned. He still used film when everyone else had moved to digital cameras. People called it charm. They said Elias liked things the old way, but when he died alone in his studio at 83, his niece found something strange inside his locked darkroom. A camera on a shelf, a roll of film still inside, and a note taped to the back. "Develop only if I'm gone." At first, she thought it was one final art project. Then the photographs came back, and every person in them had disappeared. The roll had 12 exposures. Only 11 developed. The 12th frame was burned almost black, as if someone had opened the camera too soon. Elias' niece, Rachel, spread the photographs across the counter of the old studio. She expected landscapes, old buildings, maybe portraits of strangers. But the first picture showed a woman named Helen Cross. Helen had vanished 9 years earlier. The second showed a teenage boy named Daniel Pike, missing since 2007. The third showed Reverend Samuel Boone standing beside his car. He disappeared 3 days after that photograph was taken. Rachel knew some of the names. Everyone in Blackridge did. They were not connected in the official files. Different years, different ages, different stories. But Elias had photographed all of them, and every photo was dated 1 day before they vanished. Rachel called Detective Mara Vale before she called anyone else. Mara had worked cold cases for almost 12 years. She had seen strange evidence before, but nothing like this. The photographs were not dramatic. That was the unsettling part. Helen Cross stood outside a grocery store. Daniel Pike sat on his bicycle near the bridge. Reverend Boone was leaving the church office. Ordinary moments, ordinary people. Nothing in the photos looked like danger, until Mara looked closer. In the background of Helen's photo, there was a dark sedan. In Daniel's photo, the same sedan was parked near the bridge. In Reverend Boone's photo, the car was almost hidden behind a tree. Same shape, same broken left headlight, same shadow behind every life before it disappeared. Mara took the photos back to the station. She scanned them, enlarged them, pinned them to the evidence board. The dates stretched across 26 years: 1998, 2003, 2007, 2011, 2014, 2019. The victims had no obvious connection: a teacher, a mechanic, a nurse, a pastor, a local journalist, a retired judge's assistant. But Elias Ward had seen them all before they vanished, and somehow, he had kept the last photograph of each one. Then Mara found something on the edge of the fifth image, a reflection in a shop window. Elias was not standing alone when he took the picture. Someone was standing behind him, a man in a gray coat, watching the same person Elias was photographing. The man in the gray coat appeared in 3 photos, never clearly, never facing the camera. A shoulder, a reflection, a figure behind glass. But it was enough. Mara asked Rachel if Elias had ever mentioned someone following him. Rachel hesitated. Then she said, "He used to say the town had 2 kinds of people." Mara asked what he meant. Rachel looked back at the darkroom door. The ones who posed for pictures, and the ones who made sure they were never in them. Inside Elias' desk, they found a box of appointment books. Every year was labeled. Every page was neat, but several dates had been circled in red. Those dates matched the photos. Beside each circled date, Elias had written the same 2 words: last roll. Elias' darkroom looked untouched. Red lamp, chemical trays, close line, old negatives hanging like small black windows into the past. Mara opened the cabinets one by one. Most were filled with normal work: family portraits, graduation photos, wedding proofs. Then she found a locked drawer beneath the enlarger. Rachel did not have the key, so the police opened it. Inside were dozens of contact sheets. Not 12 photos, not 11, dozens. The final roll was only the last piece. Elias had been photographing disappearances for years, not after they happened, before. On the back of one contact sheet, he had written, "I thought I was documenting the town. Then I realized I was documenting the pattern." The pattern began with invitations. That was what Elias had written in a notebook hidden under the darkroom sink. Each missing person had received something before vanishing: a letter, a phone call, a note under the door, a message from someone they trusted. They were asked to meet somewhere ordinary: a church office, a repair shop, a bridge, a school parking lot. Elias did not know who sent the invitations, but he knew who arrived afterward: the man in the gray coat. Mara read Elias' notes carefully. He had not accused anyone. He had only written what he saw: times, places, vehicles, faces. Then one sentence stopped her. He knows I take the pictures, and now he poses them for me. The next photo changed everything. It showed a woman named Clara Whitman standing outside the Blackridge courthouse. Clara had worked in the records office for 30 years. She vanished in 2014. Police said she left town after stealing documents. Her family never believed it. In Elias' photograph, Clara was holding a brown envelope. Behind her, barely visible near the courthouse steps, stood the man in the gray coat. But this time, part of his face was visible. Mara sent the enlarged image through an old records search. The result came back the next morning. His name was Victor Hallow. Former private security consultant, former courthouse contractor, and for 15 years, he had been paid by people whose names appeared in sealed town records. Victor Hallow had no criminal record, no public scandals, no known enemies. He lived in a clean brick house at the edge of Blackridge, where the trees were thick and the road had no streetlights. When Mara questioned him, he smiled politely. Yes, he knew Elias Ward. Everyone knew Elias. Yes, he remembered some of the missing people. Small towns were full of sad stories. But when Mara showed him the photograph from the courthouse, his face changed. Only for a second. Then he said, "Old film can be misleading." Mara placed another photo on the table. Then another. Then another. Victor looked at them in silence. Finally, he said, "A photographer sees only what stands in front of him." Mara answered, "Not Elias." He saw what followed. The search warrant came after Rachel found the missing negatives. They were hidden inside the wall behind Elias' framed first camera. The negatives showed more than the developed prints. Wider frames, extra details, things Elias had cropped out for safety. One image showed Victor Hallow handing an envelope to Clara Whitman. Another showed the dark sedan outside Daniel Pike's house. A third showed a storage building near the old mill. That building appeared in 6 different negatives. Mara sent officers there before sunrise. Inside, they found file boxes, not bodies, not weapons, records, contracts, letters, photographs, evidence of people being pressured, threatened, and erased from public life when they knew too much. Elias had not been chasing a killer, he had been uncovering a machine. The machine had a name, the Blackridge Trust. Officially, it was a private foundation that restored historic buildings and funded local projects. Unofficially, it protected powerful families, judges, developers, police officials, business owners. For years, people who discovered the wrong secret were invited to private meetings. Some were paid to leave, some were threatened into silence, some disappeared. Victor Hallow was not the only one involved. He was the cleaner, the man who followed, the man who made sure fear looked like choice. But Elias Ward had spent decades doing what no one expected. He had taken pictures, quietly, patiently, from across streets, through windows, in reflections, and every frame had turned silence into evidence. Rachel remembered something after the first arrests. Elias had once told her never to throw away a bad photograph. She asked him why. He said, "Because sometimes the mistake is where the truth is hiding." That sentence made Mara go back to the burned 12th frame, the final exposure, the one almost ruined. The lab had dismissed it as unusable, but Mara sent it to a specialist. Hours later, the image came back enhanced. It was dark, blurred, damaged, but clear enough. The photograph showed Elias' own studio. The darkroom door was open. A man stood inside. Not Victor Hallow. Someone older. Someone more powerful. Judge Malcolm Reeve. The man who had dismissed 3 of the missing persons cases years before. Judge Reeve had retired with honors. His portrait still hung in the courthouse. He had given speeches about justice. He had shaken hands with families whose missing loved ones he already knew about. When investigators searched his lake house, they found a locked cabinet. Inside were envelopes labeled by year. Each envelope contained photographs. Not Elias photos. Copies. Someone had been collecting what Elias collected. Watching the watcher. At the bottom of the cabinet was one note. Ward is becoming careless. Below it was a date. The day Elias died. Rachel stood outside the lake house as officers carried boxes into the rain. She did not say anything. She only held Elias' old camera against her chest. For the first time, she understood. Her uncle had not died with a secret. He had left a trap. The trial was not clean. Powerful cases never are. Attorneys argued the photographs were unclear. They called Elias old, obsessive, confused. They said he saw patterns because he wanted patterns to exist. Then the prosecution showed the timeline, the invitations, the photos, the dark sedan, the courthouse records, the payments, the hidden files, and finally, the last roll. One photo for every missing person. One date before each disappearance, one man appearing again and again, and one burned frame showing the judge inside Elias' studio. The courtroom stayed silent for almost a full minute, not because the evidence was loud, because it was quiet, just like Elias had been, and somehow, that made it harder to ignore. Elias Ward spent his life photographing people who wanted to be remembered. Brides, children, graduates, families. People smiling because they believed the camera would keep something safe. But near the end, Elias photographed people no one wanted remembered. People the town had buried in paperwork. People whose stories had been reduced to rumors, choices, and closed files. He never shouted. He never accused. He never stood in front of cameras. He simply kept loading film, kept watching, kept developing the truth in a small red room behind his studio. The last roll did not bring the missing home, but it gave their family something they had been denied for years. Proof. Elias Ward knew the town's darkest secret, and he left it in the only language he trusted, a photograph. This was Docket Stories, where every case file has a story. Subscribe for the next case.